Chapter 1. The Crimson Invitation. The rain pattered relentlessly against the windows of Hercule Poirot's London flat, a dreary symphony that matched the grey monotony of the April evening. The little Belgian detective sat in his armchair, his moustache impeccably waxed, a cup of tisane steaming in his hand. The world outside was damp and dull, but within, the order of his mind hummed with quiet satisfaction. That is, until the post arrived. Mon Dieu, Poirot muttered, glancing at the clock. The postman! He is late again. This English weather, it disrupts even the most reliable of systems. The knock came at last, sharp and insistent. Poirot rose, smoothing his waistcoat, and opened the door to find not the postman, but a soggy envelope thrust onto the mat by an unseen hand. The bell had not rung, the street was silent, and the rain swallowed any trace of the deliverer. Curious, Poirot retrieved the letter with a handkerchief, ever cautious of the unknown, and returned to his chair. The envelope was heavy, its paper thick and expensive, though stained with streaks of red that blurred the ink of his address. He slit it open with a silver letter opener, revealing a single sheet folded within. The moment he unfolded it, a faint metallic scent wafted up. Blood, unmistakably. The message was written in a hurried, elegant script. Monsieur Poirot, your presence is required at Blackthornne Manor, Yorkshire, by the evening of April 8th. A matter of life and death awaits. The book will bleed for you. Come alone. No signature, no explanation, just those cryptic words and a splatter of crimson that had dried into the paper's fibres. Poirot's grey eyes gleamed with intrigue. He turned the envelope over, noting a faint wax seal, cracked and incomplete, bearing the impression of a quill dipped in blood. A puzzle, oui, he said aloud, tapping his temple. But why the blood? And this book? What manner of nonsense is this? Hercule Poirot does not chase phantoms, yet this is no ordinary summons. He rang for his faithful companion, Captain Hastings, who was visiting that week. Hastings burst in, his face flushed from a brisk walk in the rain, his umbrella dripping onto the pristine rug. I say, Poirot, you look positively electrified. What's happened? Poirot held up the letter, his expression a blend of amusement and calculation. Hastings, mon ami, what do you make of this? A letter that bleeds, a manor in Yorkshire, and a demand for my little grey cells. Is it a jest, or a cry for help? Hastings peered at the page, his brow furrowing. Good Lord, that's blood, isn't it? Looks dashed sinister to me. Are you going? Poirot smiled thinly. Sinister, perhaps, but intriguing most certainly. The mind of Hercule Poirot, it does not resist a challenge. Tomorrow we depart for Blackthornne Manor. But you, Hastings, you will stay in London. What? Oh, come now, Poirot, you can't leave me out of this, Hastings protested, his voice rising. No, no, Poirot said firmly, raising a hand. The letter says, come alone, and I shall respect its terms, for now. But be ready, mon ami, I may call upon you yet. The next morning, April 8th, Poirot boarded the train to Yorkshire, his valise packed with precision, his mind already turning over the mystery. The countryside rolled past in a blur of green and grey, but his thoughts lingered on that single phrase. The book will bleed for you. What book? Whose blood? And why him? As the train rattled northward, Poirot murmured to himself, The game, it begins. Let us see what secrets this Blackthornne Manor holds. Chapter 2. The Library of Secrets. Blackthornne Manor loomed against the Yorkshire skyline like a shadow cast by a dying sun. Its Gothic spires pierced the mist, and its stone walls, weathered by centuries, seemed to groan under the weight of untold stories. Hercule Poirot stepped from the hired car, his polished shoes crunching on the gravel drive, and adjusted his hat against the drizzle. The air carried a chill that seeped into his bones, but his eyes sparkled with anticipation. The front door creaked open before he could knock, revealing a gaunt butler with hollow cheeks and a voice like dry leaves. "Monsieur Poirot, I presume. You are expected. This way, if you please." Poirot followed, noting the man's stiff gait and the faint tremor in his hands. The interior of the manor was a labyrinth of dark wood and faded tapestries, lit by flickering gas lamps that cast long dancing shadows. The butler led him through a grand hall and up a winding staircase, stopping at a pair of heavy oak doors. "The library, sir," the butler intoned, pushing them open. "You'll find what you came for within." Poirot stepped inside, and the doors thudded shut behind him. The library was vast, its walls lined with shelves that stretched to a vaulted ceiling. Dust motes floated in the dim light, filtering through tall, narrow windows. At the centre of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it rested a single book, bound in black leather, its edges worn, its presence commanding. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, approaching with measured steps. "This, then, is the book that bleeds?" He reached out, his gloved fingers hovering over the cover. The title was embossed in faint gold, Veritas Sanguis, Latin for the truth of blood. A curious choice. He opened it, and the pages crackled as if reluctant to yield their secrets. The first page was blank, save for a single red smear, fresh, glistening, as though the book had wept moments before his arrival. Poirot recoiled, his moustache twitching. "Impossible! Blood does not flow from paper. This is a trick, a clever illusion, yet how?" He turned the page, and the text began, an ornate script written in English, detailing a cryptic passage about betrayal and retribution. As he read, a droplet of red welled up from the paper, pooling at the edge of a word, "justice," before dripping onto the pedestal. Poirot watched, transfixed, as the stain spread, then vanished, leaving the page pristine once more. "Extraordinaire," he murmured, closing the book with a snap. "This is no ordinary volume. It lives, it speaks. Perhaps it accuses, but of what? And to whom?" A soft cough interrupted his thoughts. He turned to find the butler standing by a side door, his expression unreadable. "The master requests your presence in the drawing-room, sir. The other guests have arrived." "Guests?" Poirot raised an eyebrow. "I was not told of a gathering." "They are part of the matter you've been summoned for," the butler replied, turning away. "Follow me." Poirot cast one last glance at the book, its black cover now still, though he could swear it pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. He straightened his lapels and followed, his mind racing. A bleeding book, a mysterious summons, and now a cast of strangers. What tableau of intrigue awaited him? As he left the library, he muttered to himself, "The little grey cells, they are awake now. Let us see what this master has in store." Chapter 3. The Guests Assemble. The drawing-room of Blackthornne Manor was a study in faded opulence. Velvet curtains hung heavy with dust, and a chandelier glimmered weakly above a circle of mismatched chairs. Hercule Poirot entered, his sharp eyes sweeping over the assembly of strangers, who turned to regard him with a mix of curiosity, suspicion, and, yes, fear. The air was thick with tension, as though the room itself held its breath. The butler announced him with a curt "Monsieur Hercule Poirot," before retreating into the shadows. Poirot bowed slightly, his moustache curling with a polite smile, and took his place near the fireplace, where a meagre flame sputtered against the damp, chill. A tall, wiry man with a hawkish nose rose from his seat, his voice clipped and commanding. "I am Sir Reginald Blackthorne, master of this house. You've come at my summons, Poirot, though I wager you've no idea why." "Indeed, monsieur," Poirot replied, his tone smooth as silk. "A letter stained with blood, and a book that weeps. These are not the usual invitations. Perhaps you will enlighten me." Sir Reginald's lips twitched, but before he could speak, a woman in a crimson gown cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. "Oh, let's not play coy, Reggie. We're all here because of that blasted book, aren't we?" She turned to Poirot, her green eyes glinting. "I'm Lady Evelyn Carver. Charmed, I'm sure." Poirot inclined his head. "Enchanté, madame. And the book? It is known to you?" "Known?" A nervous laugh escaped her. "It's haunted us all, one way or another." A third voice, gruff and low, rumbled from a burly man with a scarred cheek, slumped in an armchair. "Haunted, she says, cursed more like. I'm Jack Malone, ex-soldier, if it matters. That book's got blood on it, and not just the kind you saw." Poirot's gaze flicked to a fourth figure, a young woman with wide, frightened eyes, clutching a handkerchief. She spoke softly, her voice trembling. "I'm Clara Wren, Monsieur Poirot. My father, he owned that book once. It ruined him." "And I," piped up a fifth, a wiry man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers, "am Professor Lionel Grayson, scholar of rare manuscripts. That book, Veritas Sanguis, it's a legend in my field. I thought it was a myth until tonight, Lay." Reginald clapped his hands, silencing the murmurs. "Enough! You'll have your chance to prattle, but first, Poirot, you must understand why you're here. That book in the library, it's no mere curiosity. It's a harbinger. Every time it bleeds, someone dies." Poirot's eyebrows lifted. "A bold claim, monsieur. And you believe this?" "I don't believe, I know," Sir Reginald snapped. 40 years ago, my father and his circle meddled with that book. They all died within a week, one by one. Now it started again. Last night it bled, and this morning my groundskeeper was found dead, his throat slashed. The room fell silent, save for the crackle of the fire. Poirot clasped his hands behind his back, pacing slowly. "Most interesting. A book that predicts murder, or perhaps inspires it. Tell me, who among you has touched it?" Clara whimpered. Lady Evelyn smirked, and Malone growled, "Not me, mate." Grayson adjusted his spectacles, muttering, "I examined it briefly. Purely academic interest." Sir Reginald merely stared into the fire. Poirot stopped, his eyes gleaming. "Very well. The players are assembled. The stage is set. But one question remains, Sir Reginald. Why me?" "Because," Sir Reginald said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The book named you. On its first page, this morning, your name appeared in blood." A chill ran through the room, though Poirot's expression remained inscrutable. "Then, mes amis," he said softly, "it seems Hercule Poirot is part of this mystery. Let us hope I am not its next victim." Chapter 4. The First Drop Falls. The night deepened over Blackthornne Manor, wrapping it in a shroud of fog and silence. Hercule Poirot stood alone in the library once more, the flickering light of a single lamp casting his shadow across the shelves. The book, Veritas Sanguis, lay closed on its pedestal, but its presence seemed to hum in the stillness, a quiet menace that prickled the hairs on the back of his neck. "Name me, will you?" Poirot murmured, his gloved fingers tracing the air above the cover. "Very well. Let us see what you have to say." He opened the book, and the pages rustled as if stirred by an unseen breath. The first page, once blank save for that initial smear, now bore his name in a jagged crimson scrawl. Hercule Poirot. Below it, a new line had appeared, faint but legible. "The first falls at midnight." The ink, or blood, glistened wetly, as, though freshly written, Poirot's moustache twitched. A prophecy or a threat? Either way, it is imprecise. Who falls, and why? He checked his pocket watch. 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes until midnight. His mind raced, piecing together the fragments. Sir Reginald's tale of past deaths, the groundskeeper's murder, the assembled guests with their tangled motives. He closed the book and turned to leave, intent on gathering the household, when a scream shattered the silence. It came from the drawing-room. Poirot hurried down the corridor, his short legs moving with surprising speed, and burst into the room to find chaos. Lady Evelyn stood by the window, her crimson gown stark against the glass, her face pale as she pointed outside. Sir Reginald clutched a poker from the fireplace, his knuckles white. Malone and Grayson flanked Clara, who sobbed into her handkerchief. "What has happened?" Poirot demanded, his voice cutting through the din. "There, out there!" Lady Evelyn stammered. "I saw a figure in the fog holding a blade." Poirot strode to the window, peering into the swirling mist. Nothing moved save the shadows of the wind-tossed trees. He turned back, his eyes narrowing. "And where were you all just now?" "Together here," Sir Reginald said gruffly. "We've not left since dinner." "Except me," Grayson admitted, pushing up his spectacles. "I stepped out to fetch my notes from the library only for a moment." Poirot's gaze flicked to the clock. 11:55 p.m. "A moment, you say? And did you see this book of ours?" Grayson hesitated. "I glanced at it. It was open. I didn't touch it." Before Poirot could press further, a dull thud echoed from the hall, followed by a gurgling cry. Malone swore and bolted for the door, Poirot close behind. They found the butler sprawled at the foot of the stairs, a dagger buried in his chest, blood pooling beneath him. His lifeless eyes stared upward, and his hand clutched a torn scrap of paper. Poirot knelt, prying the scrap free. It was a page from Veritas Sanguis, smeared with fresh blood, bearing a single word: loyalty. The clock in the hall struck midnight, its chimes reverberating through the manor. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot whispered, rising. The first has fallen as promised." The others crowded into the hall, gasps and curses filling the air. Sir Reginald's face darkened. "Jenkins, my butler for 20 years. Who did this?" "That," Poirot said, holding up the bloodied page, "is what we must discover. This book, it does not merely predict, it participates. Tell me, who had reason to harm this man?" Silence fell, thick and uneasy. Lady Evelyn clutched her necklace. Malone flexed his scarred hands. Grayson stared at the floor, and Clara's sobs grew quieter. Sir Reginald finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Jenkins knew all our secrets. He was here when my father died, when they all died." Poirot nodded, his grey cells whirring. "Then we begin with the past, mes amis. But first, this page, it is a clue. Loyalty betrayed, perhaps. We shall see." He slipped the scrap into his pocket, his eyes gleaming with resolve. The game had claimed its first victim, and Hercule Poirot was determined it would not claim another, not before he unravelled the truth. Chapter 5. The Puzzle of the Ink. The library of Blackthornne Manor was colder now, the air heavy with the scent of old paper and the faint tang of blood. Hercule Poirot stood before Veritas Sanguis, its black cover glinting faintly in the lamplight. The death of Jenkins, the butler, had sent a ripple of dread through the household, and the torn page in Poirot's pocket burned like a silent accusation. He opened the book once more, determined to wrest its secrets from its cryptic depths. The page where his name had appeared was intact, though the words "the first falls at midnight" had faded, replaced by a new line. "The ink runs with the guilty." Poirot frowned, tracing the text with a gloved finger. As he watched, a bead of red welled up from the word guilty, trickling down the page before vanishing into the binding. "Most curious," he muttered. "The book, it speaks in riddles, yet it knows more than it tells. This ink, or blood, it is the key." He turned to the others who had gathered reluctantly at his summons. Sir Reginald stood rigid, his jaw clenched. Lady Evelyn perched on a chair, her eyes darting. Malone leaned against a shelf, arms crossed. Grayson fidgeted with his spectacles, and Clara sat pale and silent, twisting her handkerchief. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice calm but commanding, "we have a puzzle. This book, it marks the deaths, Jenkins, the groundskeeper, and it names me. But why? And how does it bleed?" Grayson cleared his throat, stepping forward. "As a scholar, I can offer a theory. Veritas Sanguis is rumoured to be a relic from the 17th century, crafted by an alchemist obsessed with truth. They say he bound it in human skin and used blood for ink, blood that renews itself through some unholy means." Lady Evelyn scoffed. "Superstitious rot. It's a trick. Someone's rigged it with a mechanism." "Rigged?" Malone growled. "I've seen traps in the war. None bleed like that. It's unnatural." Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. "Mechanism or magic, it matters not, yet. What matters is the message. The ink runs with the guilty. Jenkins died with loyalty in his hand. Who among you betrayed him?" "Shater," Reginald bristled. "You accuse us, Poirot? Jenkins was loyal to me, to this house." "Loyalty," Poirot mused, "is a double-edged blade, monsieur. Perhaps he knew too much, secrets you wished buried." Clara's voice trembled as she spoke. "My father. He said Jenkins was there the night he lost everything. He blamed Blackthorne. Your father, Sir Reginald." Sir Reginald's eyes narrowed. "Your father was a fool, Clara. He gambled away his fortune and blamed us for his ruin." "Enough," Lady Evelyn snapped. "We're all tied to this wretched place. Old debts, old grudges. But I didn't kill Jenkins, and I'd wager none of us did." Poirot smiled faintly. "Wager, madam. A dangerous game. Let us test this book instead." He produced a pen from his pocket, dipped it in ink from a nearby stand, and wrote a single word on a blank page: "Truth." The ink sat black and still for a moment, then turned red, spreading like a wound before fading away. "Mon Dieu," Poirot said, stepping back. "It rejects the false ink. It demands blood." "But whose?" Grayson paled. "You don't mean—" "I mean nothing yet," Poirot interrupted. "But observe, the book is alive to guilt, to secrets. Someone here knows more than they say." A sudden clatter broke the tension. Malone had knocked over a candlestick. His scarred face flushed. "This is madness. I'm no scholar, no alchemist. I've got no part in this." "Calm yourself, monsieur," Poirot said sharply. "The guilty, they often protest loudest." Malone glared but said nothing. Poirot closed the book, his mind whirring. The ink, the blood, the deaths. They were threads in a tapestry he could not yet see. But one thing was clear. The killer was among them, and the book was their silent witness. As the group dispersed, uneasy and muttering, Poirot lingered, staring at Veritas Sanguis. "You know the truth," he whispered, "but you will not hide it from Hercule Poirot for long." Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. The morning sun struggled to pierce the fog enveloping Blackthornne Manor, casting a pale, sickly light through the drawing-room windows. Hercule Poirot stood with his hands clasped behind his back, observing the assembled guests as they sipped tea in uneasy silence. The deaths of Jenkins and the groundskeeper hung over them like a storm cloud, and the bleeding book's cryptic messages gnawed at their nerves. Poirot knew the time had come to dig deeper, into the shadows of their pasts. "Mes amis," he began, his voice crisp, "we cannot ignore the thread that binds us to this mystery, the history of this house and its cursed book. Sir Reginald, you spoke of your father and his circle. Tell me more." Sir Reginald set his teacup down with a clink, his face hardening. "My father, Lord Edmund Blackthorne, was a collector of the arcane. Books, relics, anything with a whiff of the occult. 40 years ago, he and 4 others, Clara's father included, formed a pact. They sought the truth, they said, through Veritas Sanguis. A week later, they were all dead. Murdered, accidents, suicides. The book vanished until it resurfaced last month." Clara's eyes widened, her voice a whisper. "My father. He never spoke of a pact. He said Blackthorne betrayed him, stole his share of something valuable." "Valuable?" Lady Evelyn arched an eyebrow, her crimson gown catching the light. "Do tell, darling. Was it gold? Jewels?" "No," Clara said, shaking her head. "He called it the key to eternity. I thought he was mad." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Eternity, you say? Most interesting. And you, Lady Evelyn? What brought you here?" She smirked, swirling her tea. "Reggie and I go back years. Old flames, older debts. He invited me last week. Said he'd found something to settle our accounts. I didn't expect a bloodbath. And I, Malone growled, came for work. Sir Reginald hired me as muscle after the groundskeeper turned up dead. Said he needed protection. Protection, Poirot mused, turning to Grayson. And you, Professor? A scholar of manuscripts lured by a legend? Grayson nodded, adjusting his spectacles. Precisely. Sir Reginald contacted me about Veritas Sanguis, a chance to study a myth made real. I arrived 2 days ago, and then, well, you know the rest. Poirot paced slowly, his grey cells humming. A pact, a betrayal, a key to eternity. The past, it echoes in the present. Tell me, Sir Reginald, who else was in this circle with your father and Monsieur Wren? Sir Reginald hesitated, then sighed. 3 others. A doctor named Hargrove, a poet called Lillian Mayhew, and a solicitor, Thomas Carver, Evelyn's uncle. Lady Evelyn's cup rattled in its saucer. Uncle Thomas? He died when I was a child. Fell down the stairs here drunk, or so they said. Fell, Poirot repeated, his eyes narrowing. Or was pushed. The book, it seems, remembers. Jenkins knew this history. He served your father, oui? Yes, Sir Reginald admitted. He was a young footman then, loyal to a fault. Loyalty, Poirot said, pulling the torn page from his pocket. The word Jenkins died with. Perhaps he guarded a secret. One of you wished silenced. Malone slammed his fist on the table, rattling the china. Enough of this. You're saying one of us killed him over some 40-year-old grudge? Not one, Poirot corrected, his voice soft but firm. The book names the guilty. Plural, perhaps. But we must look closer. Lady Evelyn, your uncle, did he speak of the book? She shrugged, her composure regained. Only once. Said it was cursed, and he'd never touch it again. I thought it was nonsense. And yet, Poirot said, here you are. Clara, your father, did he leave anything behind? A journal, a letter? Clara hesitated, then nodded. A box of papers. I brought it with me. It's upstairs. Bon, Poirot said, clapping his hands. You will fetch it, mademoiselle. The past, it holds the key, and Hercule Poirot will unlock it. As Clara hurried off, the others exchanged wary glances. The shadows of 40 years ago were creeping into the light, and Poirot sensed the truth was closer and more dangerous than ever. Chapter 7. The second stain the afternoon light filtered, weakly through the library windows, casting long shadows across the shelves as Hercule Poirot pored over the box of papers Clara had retrieved. The contents were a jumble of faded letters, scribbled notes, and a single leather-bound journal. Her father's marked with the initials J.W. The air was thick with dust and tension, the guests hovering nearby, their eyes darting between Poirot and the ominous Veritas Sanguis on its pedestal. Poirot opened the journal, his gloved fingers turning brittle pages, until he paused at an entry dated April 7th, 1885. Exactly 40 years ago to the day, adjusted for the current year of 1925. The script was frantic, the ink smudged. Edmund swore the book would reveal all truth beyond death. Hargrove bled first, a cut to seal the pact. Lillian wept, Thomas raged, but we pressed on. The key is real, eternity in our grasp. Yet I fear we've damned ourselves. The book knows. Mon Dieu! Poirot murmured, his moustache twitching. A pact sealed in blood. This key, it drove them to madness. He looked up, addressing the group. Mademoiselle Clara, your father wrote of a key to eternity. Sir Reginald, you called it a collector's fancy. What was it, truly? Sir Reginald's face darkened. A myth, a relic they believed could preserve the soul. My father obsessed over it, but it was never found. The book was all they left behind. Before Poirot could respond, a sharp gasp cut through the room. Grayson pointed at Veritas Sanguis, his voice trembling. Look! It's bleeding again! The book lay open, unbidden, a fresh stain spreading across a blank page. Words formed in crimson. The second stains the earth. The blood dripped from the page, pooling on the pedestal, then vanished as quickly as it had come. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Another warning! We must! A scream echoed from outside, shrill and piercing. Malone bolted for the door. The others, close behind, Poirot following with measured haste. They spilled onto the manor's rear terrace, where the fog clung thickly to the ground. There, sprawled in the garden, lay Professor Grayson's assistant, a young man named Peter, who'd arrived with him and kept to himself. His throat was slashed, his blood soaking the earth, a torn page clutched in his stiffening hand. Mon Dieu! Poirot exclaimed, kneeling beside the body. He pried the page free, revealing a single word in blood. Knowledge. Grayson staggered back, his spectacles fogging with panic. Peter! He was helping me catalogue the book's pages. He knew nothing of this. Or perhaps too much, Poirot said, rising. 2 deaths, 2 words, loyalty and knowledge. The book accuses, but it also reveals. Lady Evelyn clutched her arms, her voice sharp. This is insanity. First Jenkins, now Peter. Who's next? Who indeed? Poirot replied, his gaze sweeping the group. Monsieur Grayson, where were you when this happened? The library with you, Grayson protested. I didn't leave. And yet, Malone growled, your lad's dead. Convenient, ain't it? Enough, Sir Reginald barked. Poirot, what does this mean? Poirot held up the bloodied page. It means the past is not finished with us. Jenkins died for loyalty. To whom? Peter for knowledge. Of what? The book ties these murders to your father's pact, Sir Reginald. Who else knew its secrets? Clara's voice quavered. My father wrote of a 5th member, someone who betrayed them all. He never named them. A betrayer, Poirot mused. And now their legacy kills. We must return to the journal. There is more to uncover. As they filed back inside, the fog seemed to thicken, swallowing the manor in a grey veil. Poirot lingered, staring at Peter's body, the earth dark with his blood. The second stain, he whispered, but not the last, I fear. The little grey cells churned, sensing a pattern, a thread of guilt and vengeance stretching across decades. The truth was near, but so was the danger. Chapter 8. The Mind Unravels. The drawing-room of Blackthornne Manor buzzed with a restless energy as Hercule Poirot gathered the remaining guests once more. The deaths of Jenkins and Peter had frayed. Their nerves and the bleeding book's relentless prophecies cast a shadow of dread over every word and glance. Poirot stood before the fireplace, the journal of Clara's father in one hand, his expression a mask of calm determination. Mes amis, he began, his voice steady. "We stand at a crossroads. 2 men are dead, marked by Veritas Sanguis. Loyalty for Jenkins, knowledge for Peter. The book does not kill, but it knows who does. It is time to unravel your minds, to lay bare the secrets you carry." Sir Reginald crossed his arms, his voice gruff. "You've read the journal, Poirot. What more do you need? My father and his lot were fools chasing a fairy tale." "Fools, perhaps," Poirot replied, "but their tale bleeds into today. Let us begin with you, monsieur. Jenkins served your father. Did he ever speak of the pact?" Sir Reginald hesitated, then nodded. "Once, years ago. He said father regretted it, called the book a curse. Jenkins swore to protect the family from its fallout." "Loyalty," Poirot said, tapping the journal. "And he died for it. Now, Lady Evelyn, your uncle, Thomas Carver, what did he tell you of that night?" She shrugged, her crimson gown rustling. "Little. He drank heavily after, rambled about blood and truth. I thought him unhinged." "Unhinged," Poirot echoed, "or haunted. Monsieur Malone, you claim to be a hired hand, yet your scars suggest a man accustomed to violence. Where were you when Peter died?" Malone's scarred cheek twitched. "Out back, smoking. Saw nothing, heard nothing, till the scream." "Convenient," Poirot said mildly, turning to Grayson. "And you, Professor, Peter was your assistant. What knowledge did he possess?" Grayson mopped his brow, his spectacles slipping. "He helped me transcribe the book's early pages. Latin phrases, alchemical symbols. Nothing worth killing over." "Nothing?" Poirot pressed. "Or something you withheld? Mademoiselle Clara, your father's journal mentions a betrayer. Did he suspect anyone?" Clara clutched her handkerchief, her voice faint. "He wrote of a shadow, a figure who turned the pact against them. He feared it was someone close." Poirot nodded, pacing slowly. "A shadow, a betrayer. Let us test these threads." He opened the journal to a later entry, reading aloud, "Lillian saw it first. The book turned red when we argued. Thomas swore it judged us. I think it lives because of us." "Lives because of them," Poirot repeated. "The book feeds on guilt, on bloodshed in its name. But whose hand wields the blade now?" Lady Evelyn snapped. "You're fishing! Poirot, accuse someone or stop this charade." "Patience, madam," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "The mind unravels slowly. Tell me, where were you when Jenkins died?" "In my room," she shot back. "Alone, as I prefer." "I," Sir Reginald said, "was in my study. Grayson was in the library, Malone in the kitchen, Clara in her room." Poirot smiled thinly. "All alone, all innocent. Yet 2 men are dead. The book named me, but it kills those around us. Why?" A sudden thud interrupted him. The group turned to see Veritas Sanguis fall from its pedestal in the library, pages flapping open. They rushed in to find a new message in blood. "The third seeks vengeance." Grayson gasped. "It's happening again!" "Oui," Poirot said, his voice low, "and faster now. The killer grows bold, or desperate. We must watch each other closely, for the next strike is near." The room fell silent, suspicion crackling like static. Poirot's grey cells whirred, piecing together lies and half-truths. The betrayer's shadow loomed larger, and he knew the third death would reveal more if he could not stop it first. Chapter 9. The Bleeding Truth. The fog outside Blackthornne Manor thickened as evening fell, pressing against the windows like a living thing. Inside the library, Hercule Poirot stood before Veritas Sanguis. Its latest message, "The third seeks vengeance," etched in blood that still glistened on the page. The air was taut with fear. The guests clustered near the shelves, their eyes darting between the book and each other. Poirot knew the truth was close, buried in the past and bleeding into the present. "Mes amis," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "We can no longer dance around the shadows. The book reveals, but it also conceals. Its origins, its purpose, lie with the pact of 40 years ago. Sir Reginald, you have withheld something. Speak." Sir Reginald's jaw tightened, but he relented under Poirot's piercing gaze. "Very well. My father's circle didn't just seek eternity. They found it or thought they did. The key was a ritual, tied to the book. They bled into it, binding their souls, or so they believed. When it went wrong, they turned on each other." Clara gasped, clutching her father's journal. "A ritual? My father wrote of blood, but I thought it was madness." "Not madness," Grayson interjected, his voice shaky. "Alchemy. Veritas Sanguis was crafted to hold life, blood as ink, guilt as fuel. I found references in Peter's notes. He'd decoded a phrase, 'The truth lives in the willing.'" "Willing," Poirot mused, his moustache twitching. "Or unwilling. Jenkins died for loyalty, Peter for knowledge. The third, vengeance, suggests a motive rooted in betrayal. Who among you carries that wound?" Lady Evelyn laughed bitterly. "We all do, Poirot. Reggie owes me a fortune, Clara, blames him for her father, Malone's a hired thug, and Grayson's a vulture picking at old bones." "Thug!" Malone snarled, stepping forward. "I've killed for less, lady, but not here." "Peace!" Poirot snapped, raising a hand. "The book does not lie. It judges. Let us see." He opened it again, and the page shifted, blood pooling into new words. "The past bleeds. The present pays." A chill ran through the room. Poirot turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle, your father's betrayer. Who could it be?" She hesitated, then flipped through the journal, stopping at a faded sketch. A crude drawing of a quill dipped in blood, the same symbol from the letter that summoned Poirot. This, he drew it over and over, like a mark of shame. He wrote, "The quill stabbed us all." "The quill," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. "A symbol of the pact, or its breaker. Sir Reginald, your father's circle. Who wielded the pen?" "Hargrove," Sir Reginald said slowly. "The doctor. He inscribed the ritual, bled first. But he's dead, stabbed by Lillian Mayhew, the poet, before she drowned herself." "Or so it was said," Poirot replied. "And Jenkins, he knew this?" "He was there," Sir Reginald admitted. "He saw it all, cleaned the blood, hid the truth." "And Peter?" Poirot pressed Grayson. He found a letter in the book's binding," Grayson stammered. "I didn't tell you. It named Hargrove's kin, said they'd vowed revenge." "Kin?" Lady Evelyn's voice sharpened. "Hargrove had no family, or none we knew." "None you knew," Poirot said, his mind racing. "But the book knows. The third death, vengeance, is Hargrove's legacy. Someone here is tied to him." A sudden crash broke the tension, glass shattering in the hall. Malone darted out, returning moments later, his face grim. It's the cook, dead in the kitchen. Knife in her back, blood everywhere. Another page says vengeance. The group froze, horror etching their faces. Poirot nodded grimly. The third falls, the past bleeds, and the present pays. But the truth, it is here, among us. He turned to Veritas Sanguis, its pages now still, and whispered, You have named the crime. Now, name the guilty. The room held its breath. The bleeding truth laid bare at last. Chapter 10. The final page turns the library of Blackthornne Manor was a crucible of tension, the air thick with the metallic scent of blood and the weight of revelation. Hercule Poirot stood before Veritas Sanguis, its pages still damp with the cook's death, marked vengeance, as the surviving guests formed a ragged circle around him. The fog outside pressed against the windows, but within, the little Belgian detective's grey cells burned bright, ready to turn the final page of this deadly mystery. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice a quiet thunder. The book has spoken thrice. Loyalty, knowledge, vengeance. 3 deaths, each a thread from the past, woven into the present. Jenkins died for what he hid, Peter for what he learned, the cook for what she avenged. But the hand that strikes, it is here, among us. Sir Reginald's fists clenched. Get on with it, Poirot. Who's the killer? Patience, monsieur, Poirot said, raising a hand. First, the stage. 40 years ago, 5 souls, Edmund Blackthorne, John Wren, Thomas Carver, Lillian Mayhew, and Dr. Hargrove, bound themselves to Veritas Sanguis in a ritual for eternity. Hargrove bled first, Lillian killed him, then drowned herself. Or so it seemed. The others perished, betrayed by a shadow. Jenkins witnessed it, Peter uncovered it, and the cook. She paid for it. Lady Evelyn's eyes flashed. The cook! She was a nobody, hired last month. No, madame, Poirot corrected, his gaze piercing. Not a nobody, a somebody. Her name, Margaret Hargrove. Did you not wonder why she flinched at the book's name? She was kin to the doctor, come to settle a debt of blood. Grayson stammered, But she's dead. Who killed her? Poirot smiled thinly. The book does not kill, it accuses. Let us rewind. Jenkins died at midnight, throat slashed, loyalty in his hand. He hid the pact's truth for Sir Reginald's father. Peter died in the garden, knowledge his epitaph. He found Hargrove's letter, a vow of revenge. Margaret struck them both, driven by 40 years of family rage. Clara's voice trembled. Then who killed Margaret? Exactement, mademoiselle, Poirot said, turning to the group. The twist. Margaret sought vengeance, but another sought to stop her, or to hide their own guilt. I propose a little test. He opened Veritas Sanguis, its pages fluttering, to a blank spread. With a pen he wrote, Name the guilty. The ink turned red, then formed words. The quill betrays the quill, Poirot said, holding up the sketch from Clara's journal. Hargrove's symbol, the pact scribe, but also a clue. Who among you wields it now? Malone growled, This is nonsense. I've no quill, no book. Nor I, Lady Evelyn snapped. I'm no scholar. Sir Reginald glared. Poirot, you're mad. But Grayson paled, his spectacles slipping. I only studied it. Studied? Poirot cut in, stepping closer. Or orchestrated. You arrived with Peter, who found the letter. You knew Margaret's name, Hargrove, from her application, You hired her, brought her here, then watched her kill. But when she turned on, you, her family's betrayer, you struck. Grayson recoiled. Absurd. I'm a professor, not a murderer. Then why, Poirot said, pulling a bloodied quill from his pocket, found near the cook's body. Does this bear your initials, LG, etched in the shaft? You wrote in the book, tested it with me. You knew its power, its judgment. Your ancestor, Lillian Mayhew, the poet, killed Hargrove, and you hid it, fearing the truth. Margaret came for you, and you silenced her. The room erupted. Malone lunged, pinning Grayson as he flailed. Liar! I didn't! You did! Poirot thundered. The book named you. The quill betrays. Lillian's blood runs in you, and you feared Margaret's vengeance would expose it. You killed her to bury the past, but Veritas Sanguis would not let you. Grayson sagged, his confession spilling out in sobs. I didn't mean to. She attacked me. I took the knife. I had to stop her. Silence fell, broken only by Grayson's weeping. Poirot closed the book, its pages still at last. The final page turns. He said softly, The truth bleeds no more. Chapter 11. The Resolution of Red. The fog lifted from Blackthornne Manor as dawn broke, casting a pale golden light over the weary stone walls. Inside the drawing room, Hercule Poirot sat in an armchair, his tisane steaming in a delicate cup, his moustache impeccably groomed despite the night's ordeal. The guests, or what remained of them, stood or sat in a subdued circle, their faces etched with exhaustion and relief. Professor Grayson had been taken away by the local constabulary, his confession ringing in their ears, and Veritas Sanguis lay locked in a trunk, its bloody reign ended. Sir Reginald broke the silence, his voice rough but steady. It's over then. The book, Grayson, all of it. Oui, monsieur, Poirot replied, sipping his tisane. The mystery is resolved. The book bled for the guilty, and the guilty have answered. Jenkins died for his loyalty to your father's secrets, Peter for the knowledge he uncovered, and Margaret Hargrove for the vengeance she sought. Grayson, descendant of Lillian Mayhew, killed her to bury his own shame. A shame tied to the pact's betrayal. Clara twisted her handkerchief, her eyes red-rimmed. My father, he was part of it, but he didn't deserve this legacy. Non, mademoiselle, Poirot said gently. He sought truth, as they all did, but the book twisted it into a curse. You are free of it now. Lady Evelyn leaned back, her crimson gown crumpled but her spirit intact. And me? I came for a debt, not a bloodbath. What do I get out of this? Poirot's eyes twinkled. A lesson, perhaps, madame, that some debts are best left unpaid. Sir Reginald may yet settle with you, but the book's price was too high. Malone grunted, rubbing his scarred cheek. I signed up to guard, not to wrestle professors. What a mess! A mess, oui, Poirot agreed, but one Hercule Poirot has tidied. The little grey cells, they have prevailed. Sir Reginald approached the trunk, staring at it as though it might spring open. What do we do with that thing? Burn it? No, Poirot said firmly. It is evidence, and a warning. Lock it away. Study it if you must, but never open it again. Its truth is spent, for now. He rose, smoothing his waistcoat, and addressed them all. The past bled into the present, mes amis, because guilt and vengeance cannot be buried forever. Jenkins, Peter, Margaret, they paid for sins not their own. Grayson paid for his. Justice, it is not always clean, but it is done. Clara managed a small smile. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I can move on now." "Bon," he said, bowing slightly. "And I shall return to London, where the rain is kinder and the books do not bleed." As he stepped into the hall, the butler's absence lingered like a ghost, but the manor felt lighter, its shadows receding. Poirot paused at the door, glancing back at Veritas Sanguis in its trunk. "You named me," he murmured, "but you could not outwit me." The car waited outside, and as it carried him away from Blackthornne Manor, Poirot reflected on the case. The bleeding book had spilled its deadly truth, but his mind had stanched the flow. Order was restored, the puzzle complete. A 10 out of 10, he thought with a quiet smile, for the little Belgian who never faltered. The manor faded into the mist, and with it the echoes of its crimson past.